Hello and welcome to the Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and we are the world's greatest radio, and you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and me, Mr. Bobby, as your co-host. To get in contact with this show, but I'm asking you, please don't call right now. Let me give you the signal to call. When you do call 877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. I will have to say this. If you contact me that way, as my friend Daryl just did, chances are I will not get to your question. I will try, but I doubt that I will, because we are backed up from the 2 weeks that we were not on the air. So it's really backed up, and I get to them as I can. And speaking with that, this could be my fault. It was pointed out to me that some people did not get the message as I have posted on my Facebook page, the Compensatory Concept, and also on another page that I have that deals with the compensatory concept as to why we were off the air. Now, to my knowledge, I was told that we had an issue with our soundboard. We could not get calls through, so a decision was made to replace the soundboard. When that happened, then they found out that the soundboard did not work properly, and that the calls wouldn't come through, so they had to go back and replace the new soundboard with the old soundboard, trying to make improvements while they still are in search of a new soundboard so that we can get the calls through and hopefully prevent the usual suspects from doing whatever it is that they are doing. Mr. Fuller had no knowledge of this other than the fact that I would call him when I was told whatever I was told. So I was informed that I may not have communicated that out to the public, but that is the reason why we were not on for those 2 weeks. I do not like that, and I don't think Mr. Fuller liked that either, but what can you do? Technology is what it is. So it wasn't something that was done on purpose by either one of us or even by TalkTainmentRadio.com. We are in the process of replacing that board so that we can have at least destruction or interruptions as possible. So if an apology is what you need or want, okay, that's what happened. Okay, someone had mentioned that I had lied, which the one thing about the compensatory concept, what it has taught me, is that you do not lie. You tell the truth. So now there's the truth. That is what happened. Now as to how we're going to get those 2 weeks back, I do not know. But if we are, then I will be available to get those 2 weeks back, and especially with all the Gmails that I have backed up. All your questions are important. They really are. And I would ask, if you send me something, please do not write a novel. Please don't do that. It's difficult for me to read that, and then Mr. Fuller does not need to be distracted by, you might ask 5 or 6 questions in what you're doing. He wants to answer your questions, but if you ask 5 or 6 questions in there, then that makes it a little difficult for him to focus in on the question that you want answered. I like to do it, but please do not write me a long Gmail. Just get to your point so that Mr. Fuller can answer your questions. Now, as far as donation is concerned, I asked this morning, and we're down to now to $1,050. $1,050 to go before we reach the goal. So some sent some money in, donations in, and we thank you for that. But let's clean this bad boy up so that I don't have to keep doing this week after week, and they don't have to keep playing that commercial about donations. Okay, hopefully we can get that straight. Let's see here. Okay, now, Now, to get in contact with the show, call 1-877-932-9766. You can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y. You can also go to the YouTube channel, type in Talktainment, then Talktainment number 2, and then at the very bottom, type in radio, and you're there. Hit the subscribe and like button. You can do that. Also, you can go to the TalktainmentRadio.com homepage. Just click on programs, listen live. You're right there, like some of you are doing now. And lastly, you can go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you are there. Okay, I think that's enough of the house cleaning, but I had to get that out because it was pointed out to me that I may not have been clear as to why we were not on for those 2 weeks. So now you know, and you can take it, from there. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Very good. Today's program is going to be about distractions. I think we had one before, but we're going to bring this up again because people need to understand that we are in confinement. And everything that you see that's going on is a distraction to that. We need to be focusing in on justice, but these distractions cause us to go obtuse. Like, for example, when Daryl brought up the Amber Geiger situation, you just got to understand that we need to be focused in on producing justice. Mr. Fuller, when we speak about distractions, and you have spoken about that, is that one of the main tools that the white supremacists use to keep us in this confinement?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. All right. Simple answer.
Because it causes confusion.
Yes. Okay. So
anything that takes your attention away from replacing the system of racism with justice, the white supremacists will get busy doing it.
And they don't care how they do it.
They don't care how they do it. They don't care what words they use or what devices they use or what theater they use. They'll do it.
Yes.
If it does the job. All they're interested in is utility. Does it do the job that they want done?
Okay. All righty. With that being said, remember, when you call in, make sure that your questions are pointed, or so that Mr. Fuller can answer your questions. I was getting ready to do one there. Okay, let me do this as I am going to my Gmails. I had one up here. Let's see. Let's start off with this. Mario, this is the third question of your trilogy of questions, and I told you that I would get them week by week, one each week. So here is the third question from Mr. Fuller. Mario asked this, Mr. Fuller. He says this. Mr. Fuller, any advice on how non-white mates should deal with finances?
Give advice on how non-white mates should deal with finances?
That was his third question.
Well, what you mean by dealing with finances, it means you get as much finance as you possibly can in a constructive manner, and you shepherd it. In other words, you hold on to your finances as best you possibly can. Do not spend needlessly. Do not be wasteful. And someone mentioned in the last program these quote-unquote holidays coming up. Well, according to the code, every day is a holiday and or holy day and a whole day. That's really what it is. Every day that you're given. You're here, you're breathing, so therefore you have to be doing something that day, so you just make sure that everything that you do has a constructive result. That's it. It's really quite simple. So regardless of what day someone says it is on a calendar, and there are many different types of calendars and throughout the history of the world, how people keep time and record time, that's what a calendar does. But a day is a day. A night is a night. So it comes down to how do you spend that particular day, that particular night. And according to compensatory counter-racist logic, compensatory logic, you spend each day and each night doing constructive things in every area of activity. So when it comes to money, money is just a tool for getting things done. You use those tools just like you use words or your muscles, your fingers, your eyes, to do constructive things in the most constructive manner. So you don't throw money away like you don't throw anything that's useful to get something done away. You're not wasteful. So I understand. Let's see now. What have we got coming up next in the Northwestern Hemisphere? Something called Halloween, I understand.
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. So what is Halloween for? Is it constructive? That's the first thing you ask. And what do you do on that day that someone set aside, if you can call it that, setting aside or bringing it down front, called Halloween? And what's the most constructive things to do? Well, one thing that you do see people doing is spending some money for something they call candy. Now you ask the question, is candy constructive? I mean, now there are apples and oranges too sometimes. And what is it really all about? You send people out and knock on people's doors and you say trick or treat. Well, you think about that message. You're going to trick somebody or you're going to treat them? Now, is that something constructive to teach young people? That you're going to be tricky? Well, the system of white supremacy is the most trickiest system in the known universe. And I can go on and on and on about that in further detail, but I just thought that I'd throw those things out there. There's something to think about as far as spending money on so-called holidays, holy days, and spending it for what? In order to achieve what? That you haven't already achieved or not trying to achieve every day. Just ask yourself these questions. I look at every day as a holiday,
yes,
as
sir.
a holy day.
Yes, sir.
Yes, because it's a whole day that's given to me to do what? To do the most constructive things I can do. And when it comes to spending money, I try to do the most constructive things with the little money that comes into my possession that I can possibly do. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Okay. Let's see here. Have to do this. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's three that I'm going to share with you. One is called Super Cool with Kahari and Aharo, and the last two are called Blue Mood Saturday and the Jazz Showcase by Ed Dozier. Now, these three shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com, meaning you can't get these anywhere else but on the networks of TalkTameRadio.com. Now, all you have to do is click on, go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage, click on programs, and there you will see these three along with the other programming that Talktainment Radio has to offer. And once you do, you can give it a sample and see if you like it or if you don't like it. But all this is exclusive from TalkTameRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I'm the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Today's topic is distractions. We have to remain focused on producing justice while we are in confinement, If you do not do this, you will be distracted by all the things that they have out there to distract you or distract us. So with that in mind, we're going to take a phone call. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
How you doing, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby? The racketeer masters currently controlling the world today, each time they mention anything, we got to always perceive as some kind of racket involved, Mr. Fuller.
You say what now?
I said the racketeer masters that running the world now. Anything that comes up, we have to pay attention on what racket they come in or what kind of racket they start now.
You say rappers?
No, racketeer.
Oh,
masters.
racketeers? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, rocket.
Yes. No,
okay, what about
racketeer?
rocket?
No, rackets,
no,
Mr.
racketeer.
Racketeers?
Racketeers. Yeah, racketeers.
Like
masters.
gangsters.
Yeah. And the word guide on page 326, they always have some kind of racket involved. So anytime they come with the non-white or something, we got to also perceive there's some kind of racket involved, right?
Are you saying R-A-C-K-E-T? R-A-C-K-E-T, racket?
Yeah, racket.
Like someone trying to do something, a scam or something.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so you're saying, is white supremacy a scam?
No, what I'm saying in the word guide, you got racketeer masters. It's always a racket they come up with.
Racketeers.
Right. You got the master the master racketeers and the racketeer masters and word guide on page 326.
Yeah, I see that. Yes.
226.
No, 326.
326. Well, what did I say about it? If you're looking at it.
You know, when we see things that's approaching and they talk about something on the TV, shouldn't we always pay attention to what racket they're trying to produce?
Yes, always. The system of white supremacy is a gangster or racketeer operation, which means they are deliberately mistreating people for fun, glory, and material gain, material comfort. And you can get fun, glory, and material comfort by practicing justice, theoretically anyway, it's never been done, or you can do harm to people. So racketeers and gangsters do harm to people. That's what that means. You're not a gangster if you're not doing harm to someone. You're not a racketeer. You're not, someone who's trying to gain from doing harm, robbing, stealing, killing, and the process of robbery, something that a lot of black people have been taught to do and to glorify. And we look forward to doing it and pay the penalty for doing it. And we think that this is normal, or maybe it has become normal in the system of white supremacy. It is normal for everybody. And to brag about doing it, really, not feel sorry for doing it, kill 3 or 4 people and nobody knows who did it, and you're supposed to feel good about that in the system of white supremacy. And the white supremacists teach black people that. So just anything along that order, yes. And the white supremacists are the masters of this type of thing. And they spread it everywhere they go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gangsterism, the most famous movies and novels are all about that type of thing.
Yes.
You can, not just in the modern days, but going back as far as you can remember in literature, in fiction and whatnot. Sherlock Holmes is all about whodunits, killing somebody, dealing with people who are doing harm to people, because that's all racketeering is, doing harm for somebody's gain.
Yes, sir. Mr. Fuller, to be clear, and the caller did point this out, on page 326 of the Word Guide under rackets, could you read that right there so that everybody can be clear? 326, when you said under racket, the use of this word. Do you have that yet, Mr. Fuller?
326?
Yes.
Yes, I think I have it here.
Okay.
Oh, yes, master racketeer.
No, well, first racket.
Start with racket?
Yeah, yeah.
Use this word to mean any form of deceit, violence, and or threat of violence that is used to mistreat persons, animals, etc. Also, study the ways that others use the words racket, racketeer, racketeering, etc. During the existence of white supremacy, and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the system of white supremacy is the master racket.
Yes.
And the white people who practice white supremacy are the master racketeers.
Right there.
All right?
Right.
Then you move down to the next one, which is master racketeer. Use this term to apply to a white person who directly or indirectly practices racism, white supremacy, in any one or more areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
Okay, there it is.
That's a master racketeer.
That's a master racketeer.
And you can use this term to apply to any white person who, directly or indirectly, practices white supremacy. He or she is a racketeer, a master racketeer, master over all the other people who call themselves racketeers. They're the top of the line.
Okay. All righty.
According to what? Logic. And according to evidence.
Would that logic be compensatory logic?
Yes.
Okay, good.
But compensatory logic is the logic. By compensatory, you put that word in front of compensatory in front of the word logic.
Right.
Because it's the makeup for the distraction of logic that the white supremacists use.
Which is what this...
See, they'll come around and say, oh, that's logical. All right, so we have to have compensatory logic.
Yes.
Because we'll say, you know, you're going to say that slavery was logical and is logical. Well, it's you know, you're calling it by the incorrect name. See what I mean? And here we go.
Yes.
See what I mean? That's a part of the racketeer and being deceptive.
Being deceptive,
all
exactly.
Right? I mean, doing something and calling it by another name.
Yeah, this is why we want to focus on distractions, and I'm glad you used that in that sentence. Let's go to the caller. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question quickly?
I would like to, if I can, a quick comment. This, Mr. Fuller being correct about everything as far as, you know, we got mass confusion going on out here, sexual confusion, black faces up front. I mean, the list just goes on. That's all. I had that comment to lead to Mr. Fuller. He's absolutely correct. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay. I thought there was a question in it, but okay. Yes, Mr. Fuller. Yes, the use of distractions, and I know that. And yes, Mitro, we're working on the noise in the background. I wasn't aware. Mr. Fuller, do you hear any noise in the background?
No, I don't.
Okay, I don't either. But
I hope that the listeners don't.
I hope they don't either. The brother from the so-called French Guiana was saying that that there was some noise in the background, but hopefully we have that cleared up. Let's see here. This comes from Javar. He says this: can you ask Mr. Fuller if he thinks white people's DNA and genes has anything to do with why they behave fearfully and violently toward anyone who looks different from them, especially the darkest people? Isn't racism just projected self-hatred?
I don't know. I don't know the reasons that white people act the way that they do. I tried to study it and find out. I listen to people. The best people to ask is the white people themselves, and see what kind of answers you get, and then try to see if what they say in response to that adds up to compensatory logic. You just think about it. Think about what is said. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. And so, if you're talking about a person or persons, the best people to ask about the persons or persons, the person or persons that you're talking about, if you're talking about them, these people or persons may know a little bit about themselves, so these are the first people to ask. You just simply ask them. You know, if I talk to white people and they agree to talk about that subject, why they do what they do in regards to non-white people, I'll just ask the simple question and be ready for the answer and think about the answer and thank them for giving me their answer. I don't know what the answers would be. It'd probably be, collectively or individually. But if they agree to answer that type of question, I would just simply ask, each one, and take it for what they say it is until I find out that what they say and doesn't make sense within the context of logic, or does make sense within the context of logic. I've heard the white people say that, well, it's because black people are just inferior. Sorry about that. I mean, it ain't obvious. We didn't make them that way. I mean, they're just, just not up to it. They're not problem solvers. They're problem makers. And in order to be around them or anything like that, you just have to constantly watch them, because they're like babies, or wild animals. They're just always doing something. And you can never depend on them. Now, I've heard white people say that and read about white people saying that. White people write books saying that, some white people. Other white people disagree with the white people who say that.
Okay, pardon me, Mr. Fuller. Right here, we have to break it off
sir.
here. Take this phone call. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
My question pertains to the seventh area of people activity, which is religion, and the degree of distraction that it provides people with respect from actively participating in dismantling the system of white supremacy. I mean, we are looking for gods, it seems. We're looking for ancestors, depending on who you talk to, whether it's religious. You have a big sect of the consciousness community that tells you to look to your ancestors. The religious sects tell you to look to this god or that god for intervention, and they'll take care of the problem for us. Can Mr. Fuller expound upon that for me?
Okay, what is your question now?
Okay, we have the religion, seventh area of people activity.
Yes.
The majority of our people seem to be waiting on divine intervention, ancestral intervention, depending on who you talk to. Some people tell you that a God is going to come and rescue us from this system. Some people will tell you that your ancestors are going to come and intervene on our behalf. There's no evidence of that using logic. I'd like for Mr. Fuller to share his thoughts on that.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Well, those who have a religion, according to the code, you practice your religion, whatever it is. So different people have different religions, and individuals all over the world. Some of them are well-known religions. They have well-known labels, and some of them are not. I understand it's been told to me that there are many what you call tribal religions, small tribes of just 500-600 people. And they have a religion that people outside of the tribe, very few people know anything about the religion of that 400 or 500 people in some forest place, some isolated place. But they have their own religion, a religion that no one has ever heard of. And they will give you the name of it and what their religion requires them to do. So the compensatory code, taking this into consideration, according to the logic, just expect people to practice whatever it is that they say that their religion is. And otherwise, how can you have a religion that you don't practice? Because the definition, according to the code, of a religion is a strong belief backed up by action. Now, the white supremacists have a religion. And the name of the religion of every white supremacist, regardless of what they say it is, the true name of the religion of a white supremacist is white supremacy. That's the true name of their religion. They do not have another religion. However, the white supremacists, being deceitful, will say that their religion is Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Confucianism, Hinduism, and they will also say that they are agnostics. They'll say anything. A white supremacist will say anything when it comes to the seventh area of activity, just like they will in any other area of activity. Not just religion, but politics, law, economics. So they'll say anything. Say anything in order to do what? In order to practice white supremacy. That's what. Because that's their true religion. Now, black people will call their religions by the many names that black people say that they have. And so it's just a matter of whether or not they practice what they say their religion is. Because you can't have a religion if you don't practice a religion that you say you have. And that means doing whatever the religion requires you to do. So if a person's religion, like the caller has just said, requires that you wait on a Messiah to take care of all the problems, and that, I don't know what you do while you're waiting, but the religion will tell you that, I guess. But you have to ask each individual person those three things. What is the name of your religion? Most religions have names. This is in the textbook. Number one, what is the name of your religion? What does your religion require you to do? And then third, what does your religion require you to do when you interact with me? Now, this is all that I ever ask of anybody's religion. The name of the religion, what the religion requires them to do in all 9 areas of activity, because you're active while you're on the planet. Now, what does your religion require you to do in the 9 areas? Economics, education, entertainment. In your religion, how do you entertain yourself in your religion according to your religious requirements? Law, labor, politics, meaning how do you interact with other people? And how do you interact with other people in the 7th area of activity, which is religion itself, or people of other religions? What does your religion require you to do when you encounter someone who has a religion that is different from yours? How do you interact with that person in all 9 areas of activity? And, of course, the sexual laws. What does your religion require you to do when it comes to the thing called sex, the activity called sex. That's one of the activities. You have a religious requirement. What is it? Does it ever change? Is it always the same? See, you should be able to answer these questions according to your religion. Otherwise, you don't have that religion. If you're not able to answer the questions, that's your religion. You should know what your religion is. And that's just the way it goes.
Okay.
And when it comes to the ninth area of activity, war, what does your religion require you to do when it comes to fighting people, either verbally or killing people? Under what circumstance do you kill people? What do you do when someone is trying to kill you? What do you actually do? And you have to do that right to the letter, whatever your religion requires you to do. When someone is trying to kill you, what do you do? Or do you ever, under any circumstance, kill anyone else? What does your religion require? You should be able to know that. If you don't know these things, then you don't really know your religion. And if you don't know your religion, you don't have your religion.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you have something that you don't know anything about?
Yes, sir.
That's just the way that works.
Okay.
And that's the code.
Okay.
What is your... Yeah,
Thank
but
you,
those
caller.
three things are the most important things when I interact. Neely Fuller, when I interact with people, I just want to know three things. I don't need to know the history of your religion or nothing. I just want to know what's the name of your religion, what does your religion require you to do, and what does your religion require you to do when you interact with me.
Okay.
And that's anybody, white or non-white.
Thank you, caller. We're up against the break. We'll have to get you on the other side, caller. But thank you for your call. That was a very, very good question. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Just download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. But it is at this time that we have to have Mr. Fuller speak to his book. Mr. Fuller, go ahead, please.
Yes, one of the callers has read from the book this morning. That's the Word Guide.
Yes, sir.
Now, you can go to producejustice.com and get that Word Guide because it's a list of words, about 400 pages of somewhat about that. A lot of words that are used by people every day. It's not a dictionary, but it's a word guide, and a lot of words are confusing. So I invented a lot of definitions for words, and a lot of words I didn't invent the definitions. I'll use the same definitions that are in every common dictionary, but those words are not in this particular word guide. I picked out words that people use that may be confusing, that may add to the confusion we already have out here, which is an ocean of confusion. So I'm saying in a compensatory way, sometimes you have to list words or be reminded of words where when people use the words, they should ask questions about what that person's definition of a word is, the person doing the talking. And get in the habit of doing that. And this word guide helps you to do that, hopefully. It helps me. That's why I put them in there. That's why I saw a necessity for it, making a compensatory counter-racist word guide.
Yes, sir.
That would help you to counter racism. But go to it. You can get it by going to producejustice.com. And that you also on the screen, you will see the basic textbook. The Word Guide is an extension of the basic textbook, and the revised expanded edition is there, plus the original edition of the basic textbook that came out in 1984. All three of the volumes are there. I recommend you get first of all, the revised expanded edition, and that may be adequate for you, because that's the basic book. Mm-hmm. It's got most of the material in that book, the revised expanded edition. Go to producejustice.com.
Okay. All righty. From the Gmails, this is from Jalari Gahana. It says this, Mr. Fuller, I wanted to mention the name of a movie that you might know about. It actually is a series of movies called The Transporter. The main character is played by Jason Statham, and he basically delivers illegal things for criminals. He puts whatever it is in the trunk, asks no questions, collects half of the money on delivery of the package, and then collects the other half before. He calls that his code. Everything goes fine until he gets off code and breaks one of his own rules, like looking inside the package. The same applies to you, Mr. Fuller, your code or the code. When you have no code or you get off the code, bad things happen. Bad things are sure to happen. Thanks for your continued support and continued service. Mr. Fuller, you care to comment on that? Basically, getting off code.
It's self-explanatory, yes. What is a code? A code is something that you do, just a guide, that every time you do it, it works. That's when you know it's code. Every time you do it, it always works. You have a code, for, say, if you're trying to get into a locked safe, and there's some of the new locks on some apartment buildings and houses, they have a code that you have to punch in numbers in order to get inside of the place that you're going. What you call a safe, where you keep money and other valuables and whatnot, that's been around for many, many dozens of years.
Yeah, I'm hearing noise in the background. Okay.
Yes, I hear that noise in the background. I don't know what it is.
Okay. All righty.
Right. It seems like somebody's breathing.
Yeah.
Heavily.
Yeah.
Now it's cut off.
Okay.
But that's what a code is. And everybody should have a code that works for him or her to do the most constructive thing. You have to, I'll always do this, and I'll always say this. When this happens, and when a person says this to me, I will go into code mode by saying to that person these exact words, and you don't deviate from the words that you use, if they work for the most constructive results. That's how you know it's code for you. It always works and produces the most constructive results. That's very important.
Yes, sir.
Constructive results. Does it produce a constructive result? See, somebody's out there right now sticking a gun in his belt, and he's going to hit the streets. And he thinks, he's got this 9mm, got it all loaded, got a couple of extra magazines, in his pocket, and he's going to go out and rob somebody.
Kill somebody.
Yes. Now, that's his code, all right? Part of his code requirement is to have that 9mm and those 2 extra magazines, okay? That's code, okay? But now, the question is, what you're fixing to do, sir, is it going to produce a constructive result for everybody involved, including the person that you're going to rob and yourself? Is that constructive? That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
About what kind of code you should adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Because the code that I've written is supposed to produce constructive results.
Constructive results, yes, sir.
Constructive results.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about constructive results. Any move that you make on this planet while you're here, the short time that you're here, by the way, and everybody's here for a relatively short time, as long as the universe has been here. Mm-hmm. So how do you use that time? Constructively.
Yes, sir.
According to what? Compensatory logic.
Compensatory logic, yes, sir. Let me try to squeeze this call in. Go ahead, caller, quickly. You're up against it, but go ahead quickly with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Can you hear me, Mr. Bobby?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir, quickly.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, Mr. Fuller, this question is about the Amber Geiger case in Dallas. One of the key witnesses was just killed, and, we're talking about distraction. Logically, it doesn't make sense that this key witness would just, put his face in front of the world. And then a couple days after the cop has been convicted, he's now supposedly had gotten shot in the middle of a drug deal that logically it just doesn't make sense. Another person that videotaped after the shooting, after she put the video out that she had shot, she was since then fired from her job. Her business has been taken down. So basically my question is, how do we handle ourselves in a codified manner when we're trying to help someone else that has been, something has been wrong, they've been wrong, and we're trying to help them, but then we're killed at the same time? Oh. How do we handle ourselves in a codified manner when these things are happening, when all we're trying to do is just help?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
You try to codify everything that you do. That's, every move that you make, and you're always in danger because the system of white supremacy is a dangerous system. It's a prison system. We're all in a prison.
Yes.
If you're a non-white person walking around on this planet, you are already in prison.
Yes.
You were born in prison.
Yes.
That's not your fault. You're nowhere else. So you expect ugly things to happen all the time because that's what it is. When you're illegitimate, you're in an illegitimate prison. You're a prisoner of war, in a war that never should have been.
Yes.
But you were in captivity before you were born because your what you call your parents and your grandparents were all in captivity in the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is a prison system. You expect ugliness all the time. Now, if you get a little brief spell where you get some extra food or something, or you're able to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or work in a wood workshop where you can do something that's for a few minutes, gives you some type of constructive satisfaction, or you're in the prison library and you're able to study a few things and get a little bit out of that can help you to do something of constructive value, then you do those things. But generally speaking, everything that you are involved in every area of activity, is going to have a side that is non-constructive. Most of it is, because that's what a prison is supposed to be. People are shoved around. People are talked to in a manner that they don't think they should be talked to in that manner. All types of ugly things go on in a war camp, a prisoner of war camp, that should not happen to the prisoners. And so, as a prisoner, you always expect that. That's just business as usual. So, I saw something about the case that you're talking about, the person being gunned down who was a witness and whatnot, and it was allegedly that he was dealing drugs while he was doing it, and so a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, now, what is that really all about? Well, that just goes with the system of white supremacy. The whole scenario, if there were drugs involved, and if it really did happen the way that they say that it happened, you expect these things to happen in a system that is totally illegitimate anyway. Everything that happens in the system of white supremacy is harmful, directly or indirectly, to the victims of it, because it's designed to be that way. I don't care which way you turn. That's why you have to get rid of it and replace it with a system of justice.
Yes.
Nothing is going to work. Now, I don't care what kind of plan any black person has. There's going to be something in that plan. If it's intentionally constructive, if your plan is to do something constructive, it's going to be something that's going to jam your machine.
Yes, sir. Well,
Mr. Fuller, the time.
Mr. Fuller, I got to cut it off right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's the end of the first hour. Talk to him at radio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTeamAtRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, TalkTainmentRadio.com, second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., yours truly, Mr. Bobby, as co-host. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio, and this is radio the way it should be heard. We are talking about distractions. Is the main topic today. You can call in if you'd like at 1-877-932-9766, or you could Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY. If you .com, BOBBY. .com. Now, if you would like to view the program, you can by going to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, then scroll down to Talktainment number 2, type that in, and then type in radio, and you're there. Hit the subscribe and like button there. But most of you do it by just going to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click it on Listen Live, and you are right there. Also, Facebook. Yeah, you can go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you have all the information you need there. Some people like to hear themselves talk. Before we go on, let me say this. Mr. Fuller, to you from some of our loyal listeners, they want to wish you or bestow upon you happy 89th birthday. Happy 89th birthday. Somebody said birthday, but we're going to say birthday to you. He was saying, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it's Mr. Fuller's 89th birthday today, whenever he sent this. If so, I would like to wish him that and many more. That was from Javari, still learning. So happy 89th birthday, Mr. Fuller. Okay. Let me read this. Again, we're talking about...
That should be 90.
Oh, number 90. Oh, my goodness. Number 90. Okay.
If they want to look at it that way.
Okay. Okay.
But I always measure it by just one thing, and that is the system of white supremacy still in place or not? And if it is, I've been on the 90 as a prisoner who hasn't done his job, because I'm not supposed to be in a world dominated by racism. And that's what I say about my so-called 90.
Okay.
That all my time, as the code would say, has been wasted if I have not replaced the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Because in my opinion, and according to the code, that's what I was put here to do.
Okay.
So I have failed to do that so far.
Okay.
So maybe when I get maybe 9-2, maybe the system will not be here, and that's what we're supposed to be working on.
All right.
If I make it that far.
All
if
right.
I don't, that 90 means absolutely nothing.
Okay.
I've wasted my time.
All righty, let's do this. From the Gmails, it says, this is from Chris. He says this, Mr. Fuller, I actually don't feel any way, shape, or form bad for Mr. Antonio Brown. Now, I certainly don't sympathize with the GMs, but come on, man, pay attention to the chessboard. He could have made him he could have made the point more impact if he coded his words. I now almost agree with the owner of the Houston Texans when he said, we can't have the prisoners running the jail. I guess he was speaking about the antics of one Mr. Antonio Brown in the NFL and a lot of the things that he, I want to say allegedly done, but he was fired from the Oakland Raiders, the New England Patriots, and he badmouthed the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I guess he was talking about his behavior not being on code. This person, Chris, is saying he didn't feel bad for him because he got off code. Any reflection on a person or persons getting off code, distracted?
What do you mean? You're asking me that question?
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, the code says when you're talking about any victim of racism, you just simply say if something happens that shouldn't happen, you just simply say that's to be expected in the system of white supremacy. That's why I keep harping on. We have to get rid of the entire system. We can't just trim around the edges and try to shape it up and try to, put it in some type of modified form or something like that. You have to actually get rid of the entire system. We have to figure out a way to do that and replace it with a system of justice. Otherwise, these things will continue to happen. They are destined to continue to happen because the system of racism is designed. The system of racism, the system of white supremacy, is designed to have black people doing things constantly that should not be done. It's designed to do that. It's designed to make that the production. This is the end result. The result that is supposed to be produced under the system of white supremacy is anything that is non-constructive. So that's always to be expected. And the white supremacists are the people who are always to be most to blame. Now, if any black person, including myself, that does anything that shouldn't be done, I should be blamed. Yes, Neely Fuller should be blamed for doing things that he did or that I am doing or will do that should not be done. Anything that's non-constructive shouldn't be done, period, by mistake or whatever, by intention or whatever. But I am supposed to be blamed for doing it. Yes, as an individual, but the most blame is for every white person on the planet who believes in and practices white supremacy, because I am a result of what they have produced. And they have me in an environment where whatever I did that I should not have done came about. They are most to blame. I am to blame, and they are to blame. But they are most to blame. That's code. So we don't have to keep just looking for the next incident, and then these incidents are going to continue to happen under the system of white supremacy as long as you have it. Why? Because the system of white supremacy is designed to have non-white people doing things that are non-constructive. It's designed to make that happen. Yes, so that's a given.
Okay. All righty. Let's go to the phone calls. We're speaking with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic today is distractions. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello? Can I be heard?
Hello. We're here.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, did you see that homecoming queen that was a mayor in Memphis, Tennessee, That's my first question. I have a second question, Mr. Bobby, if you don't mind.
Mr. Fuller, did you
What's
see
the
the
first
guy?
question?
The guy was a homecoming situation, but it was a male.
Yes, sir.
He was asking about that, Mr. Fuller. Did you see it? Or
I haven't heard anything about that. But if it's something that's non-constructive, the white supremacists are most to blame. So you just blanketly do that. That's code. I mean, why? Because we're in their prison. So anything that happens that shouldn't happen in the illegitimate prison, and we're all prisoners of war, and the system of white supremacy is an illegitimate prison system. So you don't expect anything of constructive value in any area of activity, anytime, to happen that involves non-white people in the system of white supremacy. Because the system of white supremacy is designed to make non-white people non-constructive people and keep them that way.
Yes, sir.
Only time we're supposed to do something that has some constructive value is when we are doing it to make the system of white supremacy stronger.
What's your second question, sir?
Mr. Fuller, are you going to go see the Joker? The movie?
No, sir. No, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you for letting me ask questions, Mr. Bobby.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
All righty. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's dig deep here. We're speaking about distractions. Here it goes. This is from Rachel G. She says this, Mr. Fuller, my partner has 2 children. The mother of these 2 children in the past has intentionally said untruths to send him into greater imprisonment or greater confinement, stolen from him, and has attacked him both physically and verbally. The situation has gone on for over 8 years, Mr. Fuller. He uses verbal abuse language toward her as well. He is now living with me and has court-ordered visitation with his children. I have advised him to reduce contact with her and to see her as actions as she does what she does. When he picks up his children, she tries to boss over him and curse him and tells him he's not doing enough for them. It seems that whatever he has done in the past has not been enough for her. This situation is very stressful, Mr. Fuller, for him, and he oftentimes does not want to see his children because of her. Mr. Fuller, what is the most constructive way to approach this situation, especially since he wants to continue to be in his children's life? However, she is known to mistreat him despite him trying to assist her with their children. Thank you.
The white supremacists set this up. This is normal. So the white supremacists, having set this up, according to the code, it says you minimize conflict by minimizing what? Contact. That's the only thing you can do. If every time you contact someone is conflict, then it's not logical. Anybody that you have conflict with, you don't want to be in contact with them, or you shouldn't be, according to compensatory logic. That's just the logic of it. No contact, no conflict.
Even if the kids suffer?
That goes with the war. I mean, you can't expect things to be the way they ought to be under the system of white supremacy. That's why all black people all over the world, we keep making that error. We think it's some kind of way to squirm around it. It means you're supposed to be miserable. That's what we have to understand. Everything about your existence is supposed to be absolute misery in the system of white supremacy. It's not supposed to be any moment where you're happy or satisfied about anything. That's the white supremacist philosophy. for non-white people. They don't say that. They say just the opposite. But really, that's the setup. That's the kind of system they have set up. It's not supposed to work. We have to understand that. And we keep trying to say, well, I don't have time to think about this racism thing because I got to get my thing together with my children and my wife and my kids and, and my kinfolks and stuff like that. You are in their prison, the white supremacist prison. They got their own rules about where you're going to work, where you're going to sleep tonight, what you're going to eat tomorrow. All of this is decided by them, no one else. You don't have any say-so in it. Every black person on the planet has to understand this. You got no say-so. Zero. You're a prisoner of war. So this goes with the prison. You're not going to get along with your so-called mate unless you make it up and pretend, and a lot of us pretend.
Yes, sir.
But we are pretending. We are great pretenders. We know we are pretenders. Okay? But we try to act like, because we're trying to find some type of sanity in this crazy world, but we try to act like what is true is not true. Because that's the circumstances we are in. Black males are not men. You cannot be a man. You cannot be a husband. It ain't going to happen. There's no such thing as a black person being a husband or a wife to anybody, because you cannot carry out husbandly duties in the system of white supremacy if you're black.
That makes you a boy.
Yes, you're a boy forever, so you can't control nothing. All you can do is just minimize conflict.
Wow.
By minimizing contact with all circumstances that just bring about more conflict. You don't have any children. All of your children, what you call your children, belong to the white supremacists. They decide the fate of your offspring, what you call your children, just like they decide your fate. Why? Because all of them and you are in this prison camp called the system of white supremacy. That's a complete system. There's no way to work outside that system because you're in it.
Yes, sir.
Not up to your neck, way over your head. By 1,000 miles or more.
That's a lot. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Here's three that I'm going to share with you offhand. Top of the page, The Wellness Spot with Tanya Karen, Everlasting Life with Michelle Vanal, and It's Your Time to Travel with Ricky Tyus. Now, these particular shows, all three that I just mentioned, are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com. It behooves you to at least give them a sample listen. You don't have to listen to the whole program, but give them a sample listen to see if you like it or if you not. There might be something or some things that are interesting to you, but you can only get them if you listen to them. Give it a sample chat or sample listen. All this exclusively from TalkTameRadio.com. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And today's topic is distractions. You have to remember that we are in confinement. We're in a prison system, global prison system. We should be working on how to get rid of this. This is why we focus in on not being distracted by all the stuff you see, wars and all that stuff, or what's going on D.C. or all over the world, and things that you don't know that's going on that they keep from us. But this is what you can do, not be distracted by that. With that, we take this phone call. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hey, how you doing? It's Warren from Warren. I got a question. I realize the topic is distraction. I was observing, because me and my wife, we were talking, and she was like, why do kids, she was like, I wonder why babies don't respond to, like how things smell, like funny smells, and reaction and stuff like that. And then it clicked to me. I was like, you know what? In a way, we're kind of raised like animals. We go by the way how we adapt to, like, let's just say you tell a kid, hey, go over there. Hey, go here, go here. It's the same way with animals that we do with kids. But on the general scale, with the usual suspects, they put us all in a box and treat us like animals and direct us where to go work, where to sleep, where to do this, where to do that. And at the same time, we're distracted from all of that. What's the main objective? And we always leave it up to the Most High, which is the Creator, that He's going to take care of everything. Meanwhile, nothing is getting done over and over and over again. And we're symbolizing, idolizing our history, like the pyramids. And I went to this school and that school, but everything came from the usual suspects. And we're just distracted from the main objective, which is to develop a code like what Mr. Fuller said. Okay. I just want to have his take on that. I'll listen off here.
Okay. All righty. I guess that would be considered VGQ, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir. Right. Victims Guaranteed Qualification.
Okay.
The remarks that he made should be thought of because he didn't have a question, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But the remarks that he made should be considered. And what you look for is the truth of what he's saying and whether or not you can use it for some constructive value.
Okay.
That's the reason for this entire program or any program that should exist.
Okay.
First of all, look for the truth of what is being said, if it's something being presented as truth, and see how that truth can be used in the most constructive manner.
Okay.
That's it. One, two.
All righty. This is from Raj from the Gmail. Says this. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, is the production of justice an all or nothing package, or is the production of justice a sequence of progressive steps? And if production of justice is an all or nothing package, then how might that package be delivered to the white supremacist?
Oh, well, when you say produce, that is a sequential process. Produce is a process. Like, you're roasting, a chicken, or you're planting some corn. That's a process. And the process is, suppose you say, well, what are you doing? You're out here digging into the ground. What are you doing that for? Say, well, I'm planting some corn. And so that's the first step toward getting the corn. I got to plant it. I have to have some dirt and some water and, enough of it. And I have to have some seeds because, the corn is just not going to grow out of nowhere. I have to have some seeds in that dirt and water. And then I have to tend it and check it and all like that. That's all what we call production. That's a process. So it's the same way when you're producing a product called justice. Yes, the textbook for victims of white supremacy that I have written. That's what that's supposed to help us do. Replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Why? Because the system of white supremacy does not produce justice. It's designed deliberately to maintain non-justice, which we have had all types of versions of that, long presumably before there was any such thing as white supremacy. We have had all sorts of mistreatment of people, and we have had all sorts of systems where people didn't get the constructive help that those people needed.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what justice is. So we're supposed to be in the process. By everything that we do, we ask ourselves every day, how is this that I'm doing helping to produce justice? Because anytime you're helping to do something, no matter how small or how large, that is of constructive value, underline constructive, you are automatically, by so doing, dismantling the system of white supremacy. Because the system of white supremacy is designed to keep non-white people, black people of this entire planet, from doing anything of constructive value unless that thing that is done of constructive value is going to help the system of white supremacy be stronger. Maintain it or make it stronger than it already is, and keep it that way.
Yes, sir.
That's the only time the white supremacists will allow black people to do anything of constructive value. If it's anything that's going to help to bring about the end of racism and replace it with the system of justice, the white supremacists will get on it right away and see to it that that does not happen, that it doesn't keep going in that direction. Or they'll let it go in that direction just to play games and then cut it off. That's to frustrate you, because they enjoy that. They enjoy seeing black people frustrated,
yes,
confused. They get fun out of that.
Wow. Okay, I would take this phone call, but it's 10:27 here, so I'm not going to be able to give it justice that it needs. Daryl and Alpha the One and Black Rent, I have you coming up on the screen here, and I also have this phone call. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try it, and then we can get it on the other end. Okay, caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller very quickly because we're up against the break. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Mr. Fuller, I wanted to ask you about this case that was recently going on with the judge hugging the judge hugging a convicted murderer, and the victim's brother hugging the convicted murderer. About the judge, isn't this an injustice because the judge is supposed to be at a non-biased standpoint? And as far as the brother, isn't that what's the right word? It's not a good thing for him to hug her, because this sends a message that you can kill black people and you will be forgiven.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller, quickly, go ahead. We've got a minute to answer that.
Well, here again, like we've been saying this whole 2 hours, and we do every week when I'm on, and what I've written throughout my book, that's the effect of the system of white supremacy. You expect this type of behavior, all right? You expect black people to do everything to accommodate the system of white supremacy. Otherwise, we're in their prison. We don't know anything except what they have taught us to do that will support the prison.
Okay. Caller, go ahead. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Yes, Mr. Fuller. You've said several times on this talk show that white supremacists dominate black people in all those 9 areas of activity. Now, one of those areas is sex. So here's the question. When black people say that they were born attracted to the same sex, or that they were born gay, I say that may be true, but not without the influence and the permission of the white supremacists, since they dominate black people in those 9 areas, and sex is one of them. So what would you say, is that accurate, that they also dominate and control us when it comes to our sexuality?
Yes, you always know that anything that non-white people do in the system of white supremacy is the result of decisions made by the white supremacists. They don't allow anything else. That's what you mean by absolute control. Now, there are some people who may say, well, that's not so. We have free will, blah, 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 blah. All right? Well, I don't argue against that, but I say, what do you call free will when you're born in an illegitimate prison that has all kinds of illegitimate rules about how you support that prison system, and you never knew anything outside of that? Now, there are some people who say, oh, well, they have received messages from their creator that have told you exactly what to do about this messed up situation. Now, I can't argue about that because under VGQ, that comes under that, what has been mentioned on this program today, religious thing. And I can't say what a person's religion, you know, the messages that they receive from their creator that goes, presumably, the creator of the universe is much more powerful than the white supremacists. So anyone who receives those kind of messages and they're acting on those type of messages, all you can really do is just look for the result and then make your own judgment about whether or not that person who claimed that he or she is receiving messages outside of the system of white supremacy, something greater than the system of that supremacy based on whiteness of a person's skin color or non-color. There's something greater called the creator, called God, or all power, like I call it in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. There's different names, Jehovah and whatnot, but it means something greater than anybody that you have ever seen. And that is the creator of everything that you're looking at and everything you have heard about, if it really exists. Okay. That something created it. Now, if you're getting messages from that, it comes down to whether or not you are following those messages in such a way that white supremacy no longer exists. That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
Because regardless of what kind of messages you get, you can have doubts about those messages that are being received if white supremacy is still here.
Okay. All righty. Let's do this. This is from the Gmails. It's from Alpha the First. Mr. Fuller, recently the Amber Geiger trial has caused a lot of confusion. Many people believe the judge, Tammy Walker, hugged Amber Geiger and passed her a Bible to show that she was not subjecting Amber Geiger to racism, since the court was mostly composed of non-white people. The judge, the bailiff, and jury were mostly non-white. Now, on page 15 of the Revised Expanded Edition, in the third paragraph, the code states, quote, "No white person is or can be subject to the system of white supremacy," end of quote. Question: since Amber Geiger court was composed of mostly non-white people, under those conditions, is it possible that she could have been a victim of white supremacy?
No. That comes under white sacrifice. Anything that happens to a white person that adversely affects that white person is, in the system of white supremacy, a white sacrifice. It's like we're in a war, because that's where we are. Well, soldiers are sacrificed. I understand that in many battles, some generals will look at the situation and say, and this has always been a general, a person that gives orders to other soldiers, because a general of an army is a soldier. But that general, from in a safe place, relatively safe, will make a decision. And I've heard about this, and I've seen some evidence of it, that, a general will look at a map and say, well, we have 800 soldiers here, and that's what we have to fight with on this particular front. And we are up against an enemy that has many more soldiers than we have. But the strategy that we're going to use, we can defeat that enemy. According to my maps and my studies and the type of armament that we have and our time frame that we have set and the battle conditions, the weather conditions, because they have to consider all of that, said, we can defeat them day after tomorrow. We know we can do that. But in the process of doing so, since we have 800 of our soldiers, we can defeat all of their soldiers, but it's going to cost us 100 of our 800. So that's a pretty good deal. We'll go for it. We'll sacrifice 100 of ours to get all of theirs. And that's the way the white supremacists figure on everything.
Yes, sir.
And so the soldiers who are sacrificed may not want to be sacrificed, see, but it's not personal. It's business.
It's business.
That's the way the white supremacists operate.
So are you?
And they'll more or less say, well, we have to sacrifice you, and you shouldn't mind being sacrificed, because it's always, for the future of the system of white supremacy. That's really what we care about, all right? So, yeah, we have to take some hits, but we always gain more than we lose. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Gaining more than you lose. That's why the white supremacists have been in business for so long.
Mm-hmm.
They always gain more than they lose.
All righty. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Good question, by the way. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And today's subject has been distractions. And we're still learning about distractions. But it is at this time that we have Mr. Fuller talk about his book. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, you can get the book that I'm reading from and talking from and rely on by going to producejustice.com. 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 And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook, the expanded revised edition, came out in 2016. That's an update from the 1984 edition, and an addition to the revised expanded edition called A Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide, showing the individual person each and every day, because it's addressed, all of the material is addressed to the individual non-white person. It's a textbook workbook for victims of white supremacy, non-white people, black people, all over the world. So, depending on what your circumstances are. So you look in the book and pick out something to say or do that will help you to better your condition under the system of white supremacy and or oppose the system of white supremacy in the process. Because hopefully whatever you are doing or saying is of constructive value. And any time, as a non-white person, this is the crux of all the material that is being written. Any time a non-white person is doing anything of constructive value for those who need help the most, or to keep down mistreatment of any person, you are automatically resisting the system of white supremacy and actually eroding its power. Because constructive activity on the part of non-white people is actually eroding the system of white supremacy, because non-white people in the system of white supremacy are never, ever supposed to do anything or say anything or write a song that is of constructive value, that has a constructive effect in the system of white supremacy, unless it supports the system of white supremacy, which means it's non-constructive just by that alone. And that's what the textbook is written for.
Okay.
To help you to dismantle the system of white supremacy and replace it with a better system. That better system would be justice. Go to producejustice.com.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Okay. From the Gmails, this right here is from Daryl. He has 2 points. I'll get the first one in. Says, Mr. Fuller, can you give us a bit of your honest take on what you witnessed after the Amber Geiger verdict? I'm talking about the actions of the Negroes in the trial, like Botham Jean's brother, the black bailiff, and the black judge, who all showed favor and compassion toward that cold-blooded white supremacist murderer, Geiger. And I say white supremacist because the transcripts of her text, she said so, mocked the death of Martin Luther King and said that she's racist, just like her friend German Shepherd dog is.
And so what's my take on all of this?
That's what he's asking.
Well, everything that happens in the system of white supremacy that the white supremacists rubber stamp and say is just fine is designed to support the system of white supremacy. That's all you have to remember. If they say it's okay, then no matter how it looks on the surface, you say, wait a minute. The white supremacists say it's okay? Now, I will do my compensatory examination and come to my own conclusion. But you got to remember, you expect these things to happen. See, black people, I say to all the black people here on this program, get out of that habit of expecting anything in the system of white supremacy to happen that should happen. And the white supremacists approve of it. Always be suspicious. And anything that does happen, that shouldn't happen, that's just business as usual. So never be surprised at anything that happens that shouldn't happen. Be surprised at anything that happens that should happen under the laws of justice. Be absolutely shocked by that, because in the system of white supremacy, that's never supposed to happen.
Okay.
Ever.
All right. Lastly, he says this. I just want to say, and I know you don't like to celebrate birthdays, and I get it, but I just want to say for a lot of us that know your birthday is sometime this month, and you're about to reach a milestone that many black men don't. So I just want to say on behalf of the listeners that we appreciate your work and that you're still dedicated to giving us your time and energy every week, because most of our great spokespersons haven't been able to make it this far. So props to you, Mr. Fuller, on reaching this milestone. We appreciate all you do and have done for us. That comes from Daryl.
Well, I appreciate his appreciation, but I'll also say what the code says about what we call birthdays. Logically speaking, we have one birthday. I'm not born every year, or what they call a year, or what somebody told me was a year. You have one birthday. That's the day you're born. You don't have any birthdays after that, except according to some religions, you have when certain revelations come to you, you can have another birthday. That's a spiritual thing, but that's another story. But generally speaking, you're born, and that's your birthday. And then you have breath days, days in which you breathe. In fact, my prayers consist of just that, just inhaling and exhaling. and think about the source of it, according to my religion. And that is my prayer. That's it. I don't say any words, anything. I don't speak anything. I just say this, and I do it several times a day, sometimes maybe. Just think about the fact that I'm breathing. These are breath days. Why? And I say that that's the first thing you do when you come into the world. You breathe. You're not here until you're breathing. So therefore, you have breath days after your birthday. And then after your breath days, one of these days, and I hope mine is somewhere in the far future, but that's not likely to happen. After your breath days, you have what? Death day. Just one. You die. You had one birthday, then you had a lot of breath days, then you have, according to the code, and this is in the book, a death day. That's at the end of that chain of breath days. You have a lot of breath days. I don't know how many breaths I've taken since I've been here. I didn't count them, but it's a lot of them, and they're all gifts. The first day, the birthday, was a gift, and so I just turned in the gift that I was given.
Okay.
On a death day.
All right. Okay. Lastly, this comes from Tiffany. She says this. Hello, Mr. Fuller. A few weeks ago, I listened to and enjoyed your podcast about show-off-isms. In reference to the show-off-isms of belittling people, I work in a female-dominated profession. In my experience, females are more sensitive than men, although questions and answers are an excellent code to solve problems. It does not always solve the problem due to the sensitivity and or defensiveness of some individuals. As you previously stated before, a code is what works. How can I constructively respond and or interact with coworkers or a boss who belittles you when the process of question and answers does not solve the problem? T-Step, thank you in advance.
You keep on. See, it's only one route. It's not like it's several ways. It's just one way. Questions and answers. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So if you use some questions and you get answers that does not solve the problem, that means what? According to compensatory logic. Compensatory meaning making up for what's missing. It means enough questions have not been asked and answered. That's all that really means. And it comes down to the quality of questions, too, which that will come to you through the process of what? Questions and answers.
Yes.
See, let's say that you go back to your residence and you say, you know, I should have asked this question and this question and this question, but I didn't because I didn't think of it at the time. Well, now that you have thought of it, go back and ask those questions because the process is always the same. Questions and answers. That's how all problems are solved. There's no other way to solve a problem. So if someone is belittling you, just keep asking questions and getting answers. And don't interfere with the answers. Study the answers. And if the answers don't resolve the situation, have some more questions. It might wind up being 10,000 questions before it's finally resolved.
Okay.
That's the process.
That's the process. Okay, to Brother Mitro in the so-called French Guiana about the noise in the background. I do not hear any noise in the background. Mr. Fuller, do you hear noise in the background?
No, everything was very clear today.
Okay.
On this end.
Yeah, he was saying there was something about another show, but we'll work on that, usual suspects. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Excellent questions, excellent calls. TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.